Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. This is the spoiler review. I do have a pretty brief non-spoiler review up on my blog, soundingbettermyhead.com, so if you want to check that out, go for it. But anybody that watches these videos, I moved out of my apartment, so I'm temporarily staying with some family. So this is, for the time being, this is the best setup I could come up with for recording. This room's got plenty of light. I don't know if the ceiling fan's gonna add a little too much noise, but well, let's see what happens. I ended up giving this movie a 3.5 out of 5. Definitely enjoyed it. I thought the basic plot was fairly mediocre. I thought the high evolutionary as the big bad was really nothing special. But I thought all the character stuff just really carried the movie, and there was some really great emotional moments. You get really invested in these characters. They've been around. This is their third movie, plus the Avengers stuff, plus the holiday special and any other odds and ends. And I feel like this was a culmination of a lot of different storylines that have been kind of simmering for a while. I'd say this is probably one of the best Marvel movies since Endgame. So basically any of the Phase 4 movies. I think the only one that might have been better would be maybe Spider-Man No Way Home, but I think that was just better because the highs in that movie were very high, and it helped cover the deficiencies. Where this one I think was a little more even, easily better than Guardians 2, which really, to be honest, wasn't that great. I don't know that it was as better than Guardians 1. It's kind of its own thing. It's almost like comparing Endgame to Infinity War, where I think they both have they kind of complement each other in a way. The basic plot, wasn't sure what to expect, but basically Adam Warlock shows up, tries to get Rocket. Instead, he almost fatally wounds him. There's a device in Rocket's heart that won't let him basically operate on him. They need to get a code for it, so that sets off the adventure to try to get this code to save Rocket. There's this whole middle section that, to be honest, the movie really doesn't need. And I think a lot of people said they didn't like it because there's just all kinds of cameos in there, which I didn't have a problem with, but just it was really unnecessary. It's like, okay, they know where the code is for Rocket. They meet up with Gamora. They go infiltrate this building. Ends up being a big fight, and they all escape. And then for a moment, it looks like a couple people are going to die, but they're all fine, and they get out of there. And they still don't have the code, so they got to go to another place, and then they could get the code. So really, the whole middle section you could have cut out. You could have said, all right, we need to get this code. It's on Counter Earth. You could have skipped that whole middle section. I said there was stuff in there I liked. There's some really funny moments, some pretty good jokes. The stuff with Nathan Fillion, we was talking about, he's got an idiot coworker. I thought it was really good. The action there was just okay. But again, like I said, if you were going to trim the movie down, you could cut that out. But it wasn't a bad sequence. It just was unnecessary. They set the high evolutionary up as like I said, a super tough dude. He looked like he was going to be like a Kang level threat. He even seemed to have similar powers, throwing people against the wall and crushing them. We've seen how powerful Adam Warlock was in the movie so far, and he was nothing to the high evolutionary. But when it came down to actually taking him on, he really wasn't shit. Like, they really didn't take it. It wasn't that hard for them to beat him. And when it was all said and done, he went from being an intriguing character. He's trying to reinvent the universe with his own creations, and he just ended up being pretty bland in the end. Like, it just never amounted to anything. His plan wasn't like world ending or really that interesting. It's like it almost didn't matter because he succeeded, except for the fact that obviously Rocket would probably have to die, and a lot of innocent beings would die as well. For the character wise, as always, Starla's a good character. It's kind of weird that he was depressed. The holiday special came out and he was doing better, and then he went back to being drunk all the time, and then he just went on a mission. He was fine. He didn't have a huge arc, just his interplay with Gamora and just typical Star-Lord stuff, and then him, in the end, decided to go, meet his grandfather, or not meet him, but see him for the first time since he was a kid. Of course, Drax was Drax. He had some fun moments, some jokes. Nebula. Like I said, no one was just like that groundbreaking as far as their stories. It's about what you expect. It was interesting seeing this new version of Gamora, where she was the Gamora that they would have got before they met her in Guardians 1, where she's kind of an asshole, and she's a little bit more like Nebula, and it seemed like, almost felt like she was just a little too over the top, but I kind of felt like that was her rebelling against people telling her what she's supposed to be. But at the end of the day, this is basically Rocket's movie. It's a really flashback heavy. They do a little bit of Boba Fett. They show Rocket on the table, unconscious, and then they flash back and show more of his story. So it's kind of like Boba in the back of the tank a little bit. That part is fantastic. Super emotional. We really can't, say how much that worked for this movie. The only downside is that Rocket is out of commission most of the movie, so that, wise ass, sarcastic Rocket you expect, you really don't get until like the very end. But as I said, it's basically it's really his movie, except he's kind of not in it. It's kind of weird. Felt like there was too much stuff tacked on. Like, all you really needed was they give him a couple things to fight, and then you gotta get this code, and you have your showdown with the High Evolutionary. There was a really cool fight sequence down this hallway. It was kind of like a slow-mo kind of thing, everybody using their powers, which looked really cool. But there's all this extra stuff, like these, the fight at the where they had the first time they're going to get the code, where they had to break in. There was that little action sequence there. You had the whole thing with Adam Warlock and Aisha, which really you did not need. It's almost like they felt like they had to pay off the Adam Warlock stuff from Guardians 2, so they threw him in it. And he really wasn't the Adam Warlock you would expect. He was kind of a dumbass. He was basically just born, and so he wasn't that intelligent. He didn't have a lot of experience. His power set was a little vague, but he was pretty tough. And I don't know. He worked for the movie, but he was not the Adam Warlock I was expecting. Hopefully, if he gets, I would say if he got a little bit more seasoned, he might be there. But once you kind of make a character that kind of a comic relief, it's hard for them to get beyond that. Like it happened with Thor, it happened with Bruce Banner. Once you kind of put him in that category, it's really hard for them to be taken serious again in these movies. But his stuff was really unnecessary. He set the plot in motion, but you probably could have did it another way, and you didn't need him. You didn't need his mom. So I don't know. I mean, it wasn't bad. It just didn't really contribute to the movie that well. And it was also kind of shocking because everybody's implying that Guardians were going to die in this movie, and they were all fine. Everybody survived. And, what they did kind of split up and did their own separate things. As far as the post-credit scenes, the mid-credit scene is Rocket's new team, which, you got Groot, who's even bigger than he had ever been, Adam Warlock, Cosmo, which Cosmo is another character that's kind of wasted. She has a little back and forth with Kraglin about the bad dog joke, and she did use her powers to help kind of save the day at the end, but she was also kind of unnecessary. And also his team is apparently it was Phyla, who is a kind of a Captain Marvel character in the books. I don't know much about her. She was a little bit later than when I was following all this stuff. She was a Guardian of the Galaxy. Here she's just a kid. Didn't know who she was supposed to be. I had to look it up after the credits. And then the final credit scene was just basically a joke ending of Star-Lord hanging out with his grandfather, and it says that Star-Lord will be back at some point. I think I'm going to wrap it up. There's probably a ton of stuff I could have said about this movie still. There's probably stuff I'm forgetting. I just wanted to get to the bigger story beats that I didn't do in the non-spoiler review because there's a lot of stuff going on. Also, I was going to say, it's a little interesting that they did not have Gamora join the team at the end, which, granted, there really wasn't a team anymore. She's stuck with the Ravagers, which is fine, for what they were doing, with the way the story ended. But again, that's about it. Like I said, it's on abettermyhead.com. I got the spoiler-free version of this review. I got some other reviews on there. I got my comic strip, so if you want to check that out, that's cool. And thanks for watching.